Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local, inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm Joe Baya here for the first show of 2020, co-hosting with Butch Theory. Butch, what do you think, man? How was your 2019? How was your Christmas break?
It was good, man. Spent a little time up in Michigan, where the wife's from. It was pretty chilly up there. No snow to speak of, but it was nice, man. How about yourself?
It was real good, real relaxing. First time I've been able to disconnect in a long time. Got to do a little hunting. Got to, spend some time with family. It was great. Excellent. You do any good hunting?
Shot a nice 8-point, man. It's the first buck I shot in like 7 or 8 years. I finally pulled the trigger on one. It was fun.
Yeah.
Starting to happen up in the black belt for sure.
Yeah. Well, everybody gets lucky every once in a while, so I'm glad it finally happened to you.
That's all that I can hope for is every now and again a big one walks past, Cap. I can tell you that.
Oh man, we got a good show coming up this week.
I'm excited.
Here we are, first show of 2020, middle of winter, middle of January. Guess what? Bluewater bite is still hot. So
Blue Marlin still going off.
Got a good report coming from Chris Hood right off the bat, and then we're going to be talking to our buddy Matthew Isbell for the surf fishing onshore report, and rounded out with Patric Garmeson for the inshore report. Who's bringing us the show this week, Butch?
Man, this week's sponsor is Crew of Kindness. Are you looking for a fun night out to support a great cause? This will be a very fun event. Belle and her prince will be there. There's going to be a photo selfie booth. It's $35 a ticket. It's on January 11th, 2020. It's from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Pillars in Mobile near the Cannon. There's going to be music, dancing, food, and fun. It's a family-friendly Mardi Gras ball. It's a Beauty and the Beast theme. You guys should definitely get out and support a local charity that enriches and improves the lives of mobility-challenged people along the Gulf Coast. You can make it a date night, father-daughter, mother-son, grandparent-grandchild, etc. Check them out at crewofkindness.com. And you guys make sure and stay tuned to the Crew of Kindness Facebook page if you're interested in this event, and make sure this crazy weather coming this weekend isn't going to impact that event.
We'll make sure to tag this on social media too.
Yep.
I know a lot of our listeners will probably have a hard time spelling Crew of Kindness,
Yeah.
It could be a struggle for them.
But man, if you guys get out and do that, that's going to be a great thing. My buddy Delaney down the street, she's an awesome little girl. She has spina bifida, and she's a very, very inspirational person, and cool thing to support. So why not?
Yeah, good event, good cause. Y'all get out there and show them what we're all about. All right, buddy. Who are we talking to first?
Let's head on down and see old Chris Marlin Hood, man. I'm excited let's get the 2020 report started with an awesome blue marlin bite. I'm excited to hear how they caught him, where they caught him. Let's get it. Welcome back to the show, Chris. Sounds like you guys started off 2020 right and broke in the new boat right. You guys got a new boat recently, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. My boss decided he wanted to upgrade to a new 72 Viking, and we got back from Atlantic City right before the holidays started, and got all that out of the way. And I saw a little bit of a weather window and gave him a call, and he said he could go. So we went out Sunday morning and came back Monday afternoon.
That's awesome, man. That's a Viking, right?
Yeah, 72 Viking.
That thing is massive. What's that thing run?
Cruise speed is about 35 to 37, depending on how much fuel we have on board.
Wow, man, that is insane. Anyway, sorry, I got new boat envy there.
Butch has got his drool cup over here.
I know. I just had to ask. New boat
me
envy.
too.
Yeah,
So,
I know it.
So you guys left out Sunday morning. Was it hot from the moment you got there? What were the water conditions? I mean, obviously you had a good weather window. What kind of water temps were you in? Was it gin clear blue water, or was it kind of a blue green? What was going on?
Well, I mean, I've mentioned before, I definitely look at Hilton's before I leave anytime, but I saw in there that there looked like there was it wasn't a super clear shot chlorophyll, but I could tell a little bit, looked like there was a little bit of green water intrusion. So I was kind of figuring on a blue-green kind of water out there. And sure enough, that's what it was. But that's perfect for yellowfin. They love that. I mean, that's better than blue for yellowfin. We got out there, and it was a little rough on the ride out, but it was, out of the north. So we're going down sea, so it wasn't bad. But I got out there, and the tunas were, immediately started trying to catch our live bait, our little black fins or whatever. And while we were doing that, I was looking around, and the yellowfin tunas were just going off more than, I hadn't seen it like that in 10 years or more.
Wow. That's awesome when it's like that and those fish are busting all around you, but it's also super nerve wracking because you're like trying to catch bait and you're going, hurry up. Like you're ready to start fishing when you in your mind, you're thinking like, this doesn't last forever. Was it one of those deals where it kind of lasted all day long, or was it a early morning late evening bite?
No, it was all day long, and they were not finicky one bit. I mean, they were giving it up, and bait was actually super tough to catch, probably because there was all the tunas there eating them. Anyways, we ended up catching 2 or 3 in about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half's time. And I finally was like, we've got enough to go fishing. Let's go catch something. We threw them out. I think with those first 3, we caught 2 yellowfin. They were all, every one of them we caught was about 100 pounds. Went and caught a few more, put them out. And after we missed a few fish and trying to catch bait and everything. And we didn't get started till about 10 or 10:30. But by the end of the day, we had our 4 yellowfin, and that was more than enough for the amount of people we had. I've always been one that I'm not going to take more than what we need. I wish a lot more people would do that, but that's a conversation for another day. But anyways, it was all day long.
You guys ended up catching a couple of those stick-nosed blue marlin, didn't you?
We did. After we caught our yellowfin, I told the guys that there's no way we would be able to catch one there with all the yellowfin. Our baits wouldn't sit in the water long enough. Anyways, I went out a little further, about 30 more miles to another rig out there, and we were able to easily catch our bait, before sunrise the next morning, and put them out. And I was actually probably about 20 minutes from leaving, and I finally marked a fish on the sonar. But in a few minutes later, I saw a big old check mark on the chirp on the sounder bottom machine, and about 30 seconds after that, we got bit, and fish started jumping, and it was a good one too.
How big do you think he was?
Probably 600, something like that. Both fish we caught this weekend would have been no questions asked, sink the steel in the tournament.
Yeah, you kind of just want to tie them off to one of those floater legs and come back there in May, huh?
Yeah, I wish it were that easy.
Did you catch the other one?
No, I don't.
Yeah. Did you catch the other one at the same stump?
No, we moved inshore about 10 miles and caught our next one there. We actually saw, it could have been the same fish. We saw a fish that was all over our bait and faded off. And about probably 45 minutes later, we hooked our second fish. And actually, there was a center console right next to us that hooked a fish right when we hooked our fish. So it was, there was some fish around for sure.
I'd say so.
But it was a great weekend.
I want to back you up I want to back you up to what you said about the sonar. So we're starting to hear a lot more about this on the show and otherwise. So the sonar that you're using now explain a little bit about what you're actually looking at. What is the interface actually showing you? We've talked a lot on here about side scan and how the guys are using it in the inshore fishery and the nearshore fishery, but we hadn't talked much about that for blue water and offshore guys. So, Chris, explain to me what you see when you're using that sonar, and what kind of sonar are you using?
Well, it's a Furuno CSHL8, I believe. It basically what you're looking at, it looks like a radar screen, and that's essentially what it is. It's radar under the water, with the couple of exceptions. A radar emits a pulse that is sweeping, 360 degrees around the boat, whereas the sonar actually emits a pulse that simultaneously in 360 degrees moves outward, and it's constantly doing that. Or you can adjust your tilt, so you're looking at different throughout the water column. You can tilt from 0 all the way to 55 degrees, so essentially straight down or just about straight down all the way to the surface. And then you can play with your range. I mean, there's a lot of variables, but after, a little practice and kind of knowing what you're looking at, this weekend was the first time that I'd really seen a bunch of big tunas around me. And, I was able to kind of get a good feel for what they look like, more of a rounded blob, whereas a marlin is like an elongated mark. It took a little while, but they could have all been blue marlin marks for all I know, but I'm pretty sure I was able to differentiate the difference between the two.
That's cool,
so
man.
You talk, we on a bottom machine, a lot of times when you mark a bigger fish, you kind of get that boomerang. It almost looks like a boomerang.
Mm-hmm.
On the sonar, it's more the shape of the actual fish, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it looks like just a elongated blob, basically.
That's amazing.
It's crazy how far the technology has come. I mean,
that's awesome.
Agree.
The fish just about don't stand a chance.
That's game changing for sure. It's wild.
Well, you still got to find them. Your sonar
That's
ain't
right.
gonna help
And you
you.
still- You don't have to find them. You got to catch them.
Of them.
Yeah, and be able to
That too.
outsmart them and hook them and get them in. So yeah, it's definitely.
Yep.
So you guys spent a good bit of time soaking for tunas, caught some nice tunas, caught some nice marlin. Did y'all do any fast trolling or run across any wahoo?
No, we actually we did see a wahoo. We were jigging for black fins right up next to the rig, and it was just like kind of sitting there right under our rigger, just hanging out,
Loitering.
Pretty much. I mean, we thought it was a barracuda at first because a lot of times, when you're catching the black fins, they'll come in and clip off the back end of your bait. But anyways, no, that's the only, but we were in real deep water, and all we did was live bait. So I'm sure they're out there. It's the right time of year.
Well, man, that's a great report. That's not something we usually think about a whole lot in January. It sure is good to hear that the water temps are still holding up, and we got plenty of fish out there. You just got to be able to keep your eye on those weather windows and get out there and do it when you can. And we got to get that offshore tip from you, like always. And this week is brought to us by Hilton's Offshore Charts. You were just mentioning them, Chris, but you think back to how it used to be. You pretty much kind of blindly went out and look for good fishing areas, or you had some reports from your buddies, and those days are pretty much over. And it's awesome because you don't waste time. And most of the time you're on a very limited time budget. And I know everybody that hangs out in my circle is on a limited money budget. So you're not wasting fuel searching for fish. But most importantly, you're not wasting time. And Hilton's is a great resource. They've got the highest resolution images to help you guys not only know where to go, but more importantly, where not to go. This kind of knowledge is really critical these days. And guys like Chris and lots of other captains all over the Gulf are choosing Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. Got a really easy to use interface, excellent customer service that'll have you on the fish every time you go. So you guys check it out at hiltonsoffshore.com. All right, Chris, what are you thinking for an offshore tip? First one of 2020.
We were out there fishing, and both fish put on a show, jumping, going crazy, peeling off a bunch of drag. And every time that the fish does that, I tell the angler to back off on the drag. And it's really important to know where your drag is set before you go fishing. And what I like to do is I'll get a piece of electrical tape, any color but black, basically. I usually use white, and I'll put it right next to the drag lever, and we'll get a hand scale, and we will actually set our drags. I like for 80 wide, I'll put at the button, right at strike, I'll do 22 pounds, and then I'll have another mark that is around 15 to 13 pounds that we used for setting the hook on a circle hook, because you want a little bit lighter drag. And also, that's the mark that I want them to go to whenever the fish starts going crazy. So, because there's so much going on, it's chaotic, your adrenaline's pumping. And, I've seen so many guys go down too far, and it goes into freeze pool and bird nest, and the fight's over.
Right.
So the amount of guesswork that you can eliminate prior to going fishing, the better. And that's one good thing to do to do that.
I agree, and that's a great tip, man. Whenever I used to tournament fish, and we fished 80 wides a lot, we would do the same thing. You got to pull your drags. You got to know what poundage you have where. And we would even put marks, even further than that, 28 and 32, even on full all the way up, because you get a big fish, you can't stop. You need to be able to mark it up and inch it on up to know where you are and how much pressure you have on that fish. I agree with that.
Sure,
it's an awesome tip.
And then a tournament, we do that, but fun fishing, that's the bare minimum. You want to make sure you have at least those two marks, and then you can kind of go from there. But it certainly helps.
Agreed.
Well, Chris, that's a great report, man. We sure appreciate having you. We'll be looking forward to talking to you again as we go through 2020, and just wish you guys a safe start of your season, and good luck as we get into tournament season. We'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
All right, guys. Thank y'all so much. I'll take care. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank y'all.
Butch, I like that tip from Captain Hood over there. You ever witnessed anybody slammer into free spool with
with about a 450-pound marlin on, straight up free spool? It was quite the professional overrun.
Yeah. I've seen my fair share of professional overruns myself. particularly the best one I ever saw was on a fast troller with what I assume was a wahoo. I did not get to view this particular fish because the person who ran over to the rod, the fish was pulling out drag, and the guy ran over there. And I swear it was the weirdest thing. He got to the reel, he looked at it, line was screaming out. He looked back at me. I could tell what he was about to do, and it was like one of those moments where I was like,
no, he's not. No, he's not going to do that.
He just reached down and just slammed that drag down, and it was the worst. You've never seen a bird's nest like this. I mean, you couldn't even cut it out. It was
no. Just throw away that reel.
It was a 6-pack to have to cut the backlash out of that thing, man.
I believe it for sure.
Oh, speaking of backlashes, who we got coming in on the inshore report today?
Well, I think Captain Patric Garmeson is going to give us the inshore report today. We've got a special guest, don't we?
Yeah, Patrick is joining us with Max Westendorf.
Yep.
Max is the hatchery manager over at the Max. What's the official Claude Petit? What's the full name of the Claude Petit hatchery over there?
It's the Claude Petit Mariculture Center.
Mariculture Center. And Max is the hatchery manager with the Alabama Department of Conservation, Natural Resources, Marine Resources Division. And, man, you probably got to have like 2 business cards to fit your title on there, don't you?
Really long one.
8 by 11.
So
right.
the reason we got Max on today is they're doing some cool things over at the hatchery. Tell us what's new, Max.
So we got a lot going on over here at the hatchery. The facility was finished around 2013, and we did what we broke the facility in with our red drum, kind of learned the new facility, developed some protocols and procedures, and after we felt comfortable with what we're doing, we're starting to diversify what we're working on. We've been growing red drum, and our next fish we introduced was Florida pompano, and we've done pretty well with that in the last few years. And now we've added southern flounder to the list of fish that we're culturing. We're getting ready here actually within the week to do our first southern flounder spawn. And then, we've been doing red drum for a while, and our numbers seem to be doing pretty well out in the wild. Our fisheries information and data are showing that the red drum populations are pretty stable. I'm sure everybody's well aware of the new bag limits and the limitations put on the speckled trout. So we are, making a double-headed effort here and, changing the regulations, but we're also switching away from red drum and moving into speckled trout culture. So we'll be doing speckled trout starting in 2020. And we also have an oyster hatchery coming online probably in 2021.
So can I request certain coordinates to get those speckled trout dumped at,
We're pretty limited to where we can and can't put them. We're limited to public boat access because we deliver them by trailer, so they're usually at all the public boat ramps, and we try to pick spots that have good estuary systems and some habitat for the fish to live and thrive in and give them a chance.
I got a great place right here out back my backyard where you can dump a big truckload of them.
That's right.
Oh, well, that's really cool. I mean, so speckled trout, obviously they're a drum, just like a red drum. Are there any differences? Do you have to baby them a little more or do anything any different? Y'all feel like this is going to be a slam dunk?
Absolutely. They're still a learning curve for us just because we haven't worked with them for a while. We have done them historically, but nobody here that's employed at this facility has ever worked with trout. It's been a while. But they are like red drum. The culture is very similar. The protocols are very similar. They're just like y'all see when y'all go out and catch them, they're a lot more delicate. You can kind of manhandle a red drum and they'll make it, but you look at a trout the wrong way and they'll die. And we see that here in the tanks. We have to be careful in their brood systems. We don't look at them very often. We don't open their lid very often or too often. You'll see them when they swim and they'll hit the edges of the tanks. We'll actually lose trout here and there from just the impacts that hit in the tank. Especially when we have them in their culture tanks and in a warmer water conditions, they're a little bit more delicate, and it translates same to the fry and the larvae as well. They're just a little bit more finicky, and water temperature, water quality, water chemistry gets a little off. They're just a little bit more delicate.
The fry? I'm sorry, my vocabulary doesn't go there. What is a fry? Could you elaborate on that if you don't mind?
The fry are just recently hatched fish. So once Yeah, once they hatch out of their egg, we call them a fry. It's just a little life stage.
Max,
Makes sense.
I was in high school biology with Butch, and I can testify that he was not paying attention.
I like to nap.
There's no shame in that.
Well, that's really cool. But in addition to that, you guys are building up that brood stock, and one of the ways y'all are going to be doing it is at your tournament this weekend, Patrick. Tell us a little bit about what you guys got going on.
Well, we've got the Winter Classic. This will be the 6th year I've hosted this, and it'll be not this coming weekend, but the following weekend. We're going to have the weigh-in at the Bluegill on the Causeway, and usually we've done various things. Some of the events where we just weighed them in, and then we would release them right after the weigh-in, and then we incorporated Justin Fidala's tank that he had built for the Saltwater Fanatics, where we would have some fish on display. One year we actually had the Dolphin Island Sea Lab, a couple of students up there tagging fish and releasing them there at the Bluegill. And so this year because the state has started this speckled trout program, I felt like it was a perfect opportunity for us to utilize these fish instead of just tagging them or releasing them or whatever, to get these things shipped down to Max and let him start raising these things up for some brood stock. So hopefully we've had 50, 60, 80 fish per tournament, 2-day event. So I'm anxious to see what our anglers will be able to bring in and keep alive and keep well to where we can get some extra use out of these fish.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Cool way to bring conservation into your event. That's really cool. Well, Max, tell me a little bit about the oysters, man. That's a new thing. I haven't heard about that. What do y'all have going on with them?
So it's a restoration plan as well. It's a 5-year NERDA study. I guess it's a trial and error thing. So what we're trying to do is we're going to grow wild oysters. We're going to catch wild brood stock. We're going to spawn them. We're going to set them on what we call colch, which is just old empty oyster shell, and basically have big clusters of oyster balls. And we're going to go set them in a designated area just north of Dolphin Island, and we're going to try and rebuild a historical reef that is more or less collapsed. So the idea is you put down a layer of old shell to give them some substrate so they don't sink down into the muck. And then you put the baby oysters out there and give them a year, and then they start to spawn and they'll start to fuse together and form a reef. So we're basically just kind of assisting Mother Nature and trying to put that's one of the big issues. There's not enough recruitment going on right now. There's not enough adult oysters to produce enough baby oysters to keep building on the reefs constructively. So we're going to seed, the base layer of oysters, and hopefully that base layer will start to build and form its own reef. Yeah.
So y'all are just kind of patterning Mother Nature and assisting her a little bit. And it could, a lot of the times man-made problems are the reason that these things fail in a natural environment. It takes a little bit of man-made intervention to get them going back again. I really hope y'all can, man. That's, when I was a kid coming over the Causeway, and I know Butch saw it too. There was always a ton of oystermen out there and breaking their backs to make a living. But you don't hardly see it anymore. It's so that's going to be really cool. I wish y'all the best of luck with that. Well, Max, we certainly appreciate having you on and teaching us a little bit more about that, and wish you luck and hope y'all get a bunch of brood stock coming up at the Winter Classic. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, we'll have to check up with you after the tournament and maybe a couple months down the road and see how that's going. That'd be pretty cool to get an update on that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Max, for being on.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Max.
Man, that's some really cool stuff they're doing over there. I'm excited to see the results of the speckled trout. That'd be cool, man. Well, what you say, Captain Patric Garmeson? Give us that old inshore report, buddy. What you been doing?
Man, I've been kind of keeping focus on 3 species: speckled trout, redfish, and sheephead. Pretty much every day out. One of the 3, if not maybe even 2 of the 3, seem to cooperate for me. So I have ranged anywhere from down around the Gulf We ended up at the lighthouse on Monday catching
Saw that.
sheephead. We caught sheephead in the rigs in the bay as well. But it just happened to be that the tide wasn't moving really well when we were there, and just seemed like the fish weren't really on the chew. So I kept moving and ended up at the lighthouse about right when the tide started pulling in, and the bite was real, real good. Ended up after that, once the sun got up real nice, before we headed in, we ended up looking and sight casting, we did not successfully sight cast, but we did see some redfish to be able to cast at. But they'd kind of dip off the shoulders of those sandbars and stuff out there north of Dolphin Island out there, around Sand Island Spit and all that stuff. There's not a lot of fish out there.
That would be south of Dolphin Island.
Oh yeah, my bad. Yeah. All right.
Well, you had a 50-50 shot at it, so
That's
I mean,
right. I knew what you meant.
Captain can't. Just trying to defer people away from wherever I was.
That's right.
Oh, it's
But
not.
anyway,
It's north, depending on which way you're looking at it.
North. Yeah.
I don't think it works like that. Anyways,
Yeah. Good.
got to give you some crap whenever I can.
Just nailed that one. But anyway, there was a few fish out there, and we pretty much always saw them apparently about the time that they were seeing us, and they were kind of in full spook off and haul butt mode, so we didn't get a good shot at one there. But fished in there, been around the Dog River area, fished Bala Battery today. There's some trout around both of those areas. It seems like if you get around some mullet, you got to be around some mullet. It seems like anywhere where you're just not seeing a lot of life, it's pretty slim pickings on getting any kind of bites. But throwing the cool beans and the little slick seem to be the most effective, along with that little paddle tail swim bait that Betts makes that I've been kind of preaching about this winter as well. That thing's been helping put some fish in the boat. And then also fished over on the eastern shore a little bit just a few days ago, and there were some decent trout over there, but it wasn't. I mean, I haven't really found anything just where I can put my power poles down and just sit there and put a whack fest on. But there's some action. Go out there if you want to go out, a couple of buddies, and pick off a few fish. Then it's doable. Find you some decent clear water. Find you some mullet jumping, and throw some of these soft plastics that we're talking about, or some of these, or some smaller hard baits. Like I've thrown a Yozuri El Minnow a little bit. That thing will produce some fish, but it seems like the smaller baits are getting a little more reaction bites. So having that smaller profile like that little slick as well, any of that stuff has been pretty productive on specs.
All right, Patrick.
Then,
I gotta back you up a little bit. We're gonna call this is no longer the inshore fishing report. This is the ADD fishing report. Sounds like you've been doing everything everywhere. But I want to back you up to sheep's head.
Right.
So that bite on those rigs and there you said you caught some fish at the Sand Island Light. Is that a live shrimp with a split shot deal? Just like it would be in the early or late winter, early spring?
Yeah, that's the perfect strategy. And I also I'm glad you reversed the ADD fishing report, because I actually wanted to bring up the fact that I have been sheephead fishing damn near my whole life, and we've always jockeyed around with different hooks. We've gone with really stiff hooks like J hooks, like a Mustad. They make one that's a real short shank and it's a real thick hook, and I've used like thinner wire hooks that Eagle Claw makes, and I feel like I have found the perfect hook, and it's the Owner 1/0 tail hook, and there's probably other tail hooks that are made that are in that same size, but that 1/0, it is bigger than what I've always used before. But what I'm doing is I'm using live shrimp about the same length. They're just a little bit longer than that hook. Bite the tail off the shrimp, or cut the tail off the shrimp if you don't like biting it off. But I like to get closer to my fish and my bait, so it makes me feel more of a fisherman.
Got a bond with your bait,
right?
Yeah.
Yes. So thread that shrimp onto that tail hook, and man, I'm telling you, I can give that bait, I can give that setup to my 7-year-old son, a novice angler, to somebody that's fishing every day of their life, and everybody is able to catch sheephead. You know,
right.
the story's always been that's like, oh, well, you know, sheephead, you got to do this to catch them, you got to do that to catch them. I'm telling you, you put that tail hook on there, that fish is going to be hooked in because the tail, like the way that hook bends, it'll catch them around the jaw, and they can't get off. Worst case scenario, you don't feel the fish until he's had it for a while and he swallows the hook. You can't hardly retrieve that hook out of that fish, but man, 9 times out of 10, that fish is hooked right in the corner of the mouth, and it's easily done by any caliber of angler. So
Patric, let me ask you about how you're hooking those shrimp. You mentioned threading it on. You and I talked a while back about, you know, kind of how I hook shrimp for triple tail, but are you running that hook kind of following the body of the shrimp? So essentially,
that's right.
Not up through the, you know, not from the bottom to the top and then twisting it around and coming back through the shrimp. You're essentially creating almost like a channel for the hook, and it's just, and so the point of the point of the hook is actually pointing towards the tail when you're done hooking it, and the eye would be where the tail would be.
Exactly. Yeah, the hook point ends up coming out about where the bigger legs of the shrimp are.
Okay, and it's coming through the bottom.
And then
okay, good.
Right through the bottom, and then like you said, the eye of the hook is going to be at where the tail of the shrimp is.
Who's got those one-odd? Who's got those one-odd owners? Where are you picking them up?
I buy them straight from owner, about 150 at a time.
Right.
But like I said, I mean that particular hook, I bought like I don't know, I probably spent $100 on hooks this year on various sizes, and I'm convinced that particular hook has got enough beef to it to where it's not going to straighten out on a good fish, because I've had that experience before where you have the right size hook and it feels right and you catch a lot of fish, but you also straighten out your hooks on the bigger fish. This one I've not had any of them straighten out, and it's and we hook a lot of fish. So that's been a game changer for me, just to finally, I mean, all the years I've been fishing for sheephead, and I finally get to settle in on a hook that I'm absolutely in love with. So
yeah, that's fine. It's nice to finally find the solution that you want. Are you snelling those hooks on, or are you just tying them straight on?
Just put a Palomar.
Okay. All right. And I want to ask you about the mullet. You mentioned the mullet, needing to find mullet. Are you talking about just like big mullet jumping, or are you seeing like, you know, finger mullet size fish, you know, flipping out of the water? Or are they smoking? What are you seeing that's telling you there's probably trout in the area? There's
not a lot of them smoking right now. The water, I guess the water's being cooler that they're staying down, but seeing them jumping, and then also identifying just big giant schools of them on your fish finder. I just put a post on Instagram where we were sitting dead on top of a school of fish today, and we were catching trout. I believe the vast majority of what was on my fish finder was mullet, but we were picking trout out of that school. And so if you want to see what a really dense school of fish looks like on a fish finder, you can check out my Instagram page. I just put that up there.
There was a ton of mullet. I took my little boat down to Dolphin Island a couple of days ago, just riding around, and I was out in Little Dolphin Island Bay, and y'all are going to say I'm lying. There were so many mullet, they were playing in my wake like porpoises. I swear to God, they were everywhere.
Butch, was this a booze cruise?
No, it was not.
Okay.
No booze involved.
Okay.
You got to look for the smiling mullet. The ones that jump out and they're smiling at you. Yeah,
happy,
smiling
happy
at you.
mullet.
It's getting deep. It's getting deep in here. We're gonna have to
cut it
wrap
off.
this one up, man.
Went from this to this. ADD Fishing Report is brought to you by Adderall.
That's right. Man, I'm telling you, they were thick down there yesterday.
Well, speaking of that, you got the Hey Cap question this week, buddy. And this week is brought to us by Foster Contracting. We got some nasty weather coming in this weekend, and we've had some nasty weather recently that have been producing wind and hail and may have damaged your home's roof. The certified roofing pros at Foster Contracting offer free roof inspections, and if your roof has received damage, most homeowners will have little or no cost out of pocket if you go through your insurance. If you're looking for quality construction with a dependable, licensed, and certified fortified roofing professional, give the Fortified Roofing Pros a call at 251-973-9999. They're a family-owned business that's big enough to get the job done, but small enough to care. Remember to support the local businesses that make your local podcast possible, and check them out at fortifiedroofingpros.com. Patrick, this week's Hey Cap question comes to us from Adam Garrett, and he says, Hey Cap, when fishing in murky to clearing water conditions, what are the best color combinations for hooking specks and reds on artificials? And that's pretty much the pattern we're in, isn't it? I mean, we've got some water coming down from upstate, and so what do you think?
Chartreuse has always been something that you want to put into your arsenal when you've got some dirty water. And even getting into clear water conditions, chartreuse can still be really effective. You know, for a lot of bass guys like to throw white in there, and I'm probably just guilty of not using a lot of white. But chartreuse, whether it be an accent like added onto the tail of a bait, or a full, you know, the body of the entire body of the bait being chartreuse. That, and then like a opening night, or like in Joey's slick lure, he has the cool beams. Those are really good all around. Like I mean, exactly what he describes, where you're going from murky conditions where you're starting to clear up. Those are two really, really good colors.
When I think of murky conditions, I'm thinking of sediment that's suspended in the water. When I think of stained water, I'm thinking of tannic, like river water. When we get a good local rain, like Foul River, for example, will look like iced tea. So is it any different in a stained, by my definition, a stained water versus a murky water?
Yeah, there's definitely some differences there.
I think so too.
I think that's where the white can come into play. Like Bobby's a huge fan of the B-Cat slick lure, which is pearl white with the chartreuse tail. That one is a really, really good bait in that stained to murky water as well. But man, another one in that stained water versus where it's murky and full of sediment is a pink. Pink tends to work pretty well. It's kind of weird. It almost like disappears in that water, but the fish seem to be able to see it pretty easily.
Awesome.
Yeah, that stained water you're talking about it's not super duper translucent. Is that the word? Where you see through it? Transparent? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of clear. It's red. It's not as murky water out there you can't see through very well. But the tannins you're talking about, like in foul, you can see through it pretty well. It's pretty clear. It's just a different color. So I like that question.
Yeah. I like the pink when that water gets that color. Pink and that cool beans, man.
Cool beans is my favorite by far.
Or opening night, whatever type of lure you're throwing, you know, anything in that kind of clear purpley kind of color, man, that thing is money on a speckled trout.
Well, Patrick, you've got the Winter Classic coming up, and this time of year you're kind of the guru for deep winter speckled trout fishing. Have you got any openings coming up here in January? Folks want to book a trip with you?
Yeah, January. I have booked quite a few trips this year for January, but there's still some opportunities, and that kind of fishing will hang on through probably early March. You know, as long as we continue to get a cold front every week or so to keep that water temperature in the low 60s and in the 50s, then we'll have opportunities like that. Water in the industrial canal is still in pretty good shape. Mobile River's off right now. Not to say that there aren't any fish up there, but if somebody wanted to go try to learn how to fish the industrial canal or something like that, that would probably be the thing that I would try to do over the next week or so.
Or get out there and get after them sheep's head, man. I mean, we've had a really an abnormal year when it comes to sheep's head and it comes to these blue water conditions. I mean, we're not usually talking about this in January. That's kind of more of a late winter, early spring thing. So if folks want to do that sheep's head fishing, it sounds like that's going off too.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, we're finding them in all kind of places. I mean, I've had some really good catches all over the bay, and now starting to ease out into the Gulf. So I mean, there's a lot of opportunities on days when the winds are light. So if somebody wants to go chase those guys, then I will certainly do my best to put them on some fish. Excellent.
How do they get in touch with you?
Give me a call or shoot me a text, 251-747-1554. They can go to my website, uglyfishing.com. They can click the book now button. It'll take them to my calendar and be able to see some of the open dates that are on my calendar, and they can book it right there, or they can give me a call and kind of talk it out. We'll figure out what works best for them. So got a lot of trips being booked right now. I'm booking trips all the way into June right now. So the wheels are greased. It's happening, man, and people are jumping on and going ahead and picking those premium dates.
Get on the books now, man. 2020 is going to be a good year, buddy. We're looking forward to it. As always, we appreciate the report, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, guys. Thank y'all.
Keep whacking them.
All right, Adam Garrett. Thanks, Adam, for that question. You're going to be getting the slick lures. Captain Joey Landreneau is going to send you a pack if you'll just email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com with your address. Joey will send you a pack. And, folks, if you guys want to get in on the Hey Cap action, if we select your question, you'll be getting a free pack of slick lures. Again, just hit us up on our Facebook page. Butch posts, what do you say, Butch? Every couple of weeks, you'll post a Hey Cap.
Yep, about time for another one.
Yeah, maybe get one on there today. And you can always email us again at alabama@bestfishingreport.com with those questions. And we really appreciate the submissions. And it's probably my favorite part of the show, man. People ask some really good questions. People ask some really interesting questions sometimes too that don't make it on. But
I really like the Hey Cap inshore special that Johnny put together last week. That was fun.
That did turn into a cool show. It kind of relived the whole year.
It was a Hey Cap recap, if you will.
Where are we going for the onshore report, dude?
Let's see what Bama Beach Bum's up to in the first week of 2020. What you say, Matthew?
Hey, fellas. Yeah, doing good. And it's we've had some nice weather days in between the wind and the rain. We've had some pretty sunny, warm days. It's been interesting to see that this time of year.
What's biting off the beach?
It's pretty standard stuff right now, but we are catching some pretty big whiting, which is good. It's really good news because that's this time of year. That's what you want to see. So we're catching some quality whiting there, and the occasional pompano, which is not a lot, but is great because I haven't seen keeper pompano in probably over a month, and we have seen some this past week. So that's been fantastic news.
Mm-hmm.
It's not anything that just going to be a killer day on, but really cool to get some good quality whiting and keep you busy catching those, and then pop off a pompano or two while you're out there. So it can make for some really, really good days when you can do that this time of year, especially.
With regards to the whiting and the pompano, you needing to cast a Cuba right now, or where are they showing up?
No, the pompano that I've seen personally, I've put baits out deep. But what I've run into a lot because of these winds that we've been getting that have been so strong on the good weather days when it's not windy, usually that water's still a little bit dingy. We've been dealing with a lot of that here lately, and that'll probably continue just because this time of year that's not uncommon to get those strong winds, which we've got that coming up again this weekend. So once that settles down, usually you're going to see that water dirty up. And when that happens, a lot of times we get just a lot of trash fish You're going to see a lot of croakers, possibly some baby catfish, the spot croakers. They just get inundated in the surf when that water gets dingy like that. And usually when you're casting out really far, deep water, that tends to be like the worst spot for them. Like that, you can't keep baits out there. So the times that we've caught the pompano, even in the dingier water, it hasn't been so deep. It's just been basically on the back slope of that bar, which is not typically a super far cast depending on what beach you're fishing. And it's really that green kind of color as it transitions that depth change. So they're not way out there in the deep water that we've caught them. They may be there, but it's just harder to keep baits out there. So we've caught them more just cruising the backside of that bar. And the whiting are where you would expect them to be. They're in the holes right now that are close to the beach that are formed in those cuts and in those rips where you find those deeper pockets close to the beach. So they're not being sneaky or anything. They're setting up where you would want them to be or expect them to be.
Have you paid attention to the water temperature at all? Is that about where it's supposed to be for this time of year, you think?
I haven't personally looked at it, but I would imagine, and I've gotten in it, and it's honestly like it's not as cold as I would expect it to be. And I think it's just because we haven't really had a good cold spell. I mean, we've had some cold days, but it hasn't gotten really cold and stayed cold for more than like a day or two.
It's been very short when it's been cold. It's just been overnight or maybe a day after. I agree with that. I was just curious if you've been paying attention.
Yeah, there's actually been people multiple days since I've been out there fishing, swimming. It's definitely not. It's not
swimming weather. Not for rednecks, anyways.
Did they have Did they have like a cheese head on or something like that?
Yeah, they're definitely Wisconsin.
Probably.
Definitely those folks.
Well, Matthew, let me back you up to when you were talking about these holes. We've talked about it on here before, but just in case we got anybody that hadn't heard that show or is maybe new to the fishing report, when we talk about a hole or we talk about a depth change, it can be very relative. So, if you're in 3 feet of water, 3 inches in depth change, what's a 10% depth change? So that's enough of a difference to hold fish. If we're talking about inshore fishing for speckled trout, if you're on a quote unquote flat, when you're on the beach and you're talking about these holes where you're finding fish, what's the difference? Are we looking at 2 feet to 4 feet, or are we looking like a 2 feet to 2.5 feet?
Yeah, I'd say it's usually like a change from like 2 feet to 4 feet. Because, well, probably not 4 feet, not quite, maybe because I'm gauging it based on because I get in the water a lot with my waders and stuff, and the depths where they're not hanging are usually around 2, like knee deep, I would say, so maybe like around 2 feet ish, and then holes that drop off are usually about to your belly button or my belly button. I'm short, so whatever that difference is.
Right. So it'd be to my knee, basically.
Exactly. Right. But I say it's
I need to go grab one of the cheese heads and be like, "Hey man, come over here,
test this hole for me.
Step out in this water."
That's right. Go wade out. Let me see, and then we'll find that depth. But we've had some really, because of these winds, I'm guessing, and because of how strong they are this time of year, and just because of the current and the wave action that we get. We've had some really hardcore swells, almost like when a storm's come in, like a tropical storm, because of the winds have been so strong. And it has formed some really nice pockets. Like the features on the beach right now, because it changes so much, and just depending on the wind and the weather, sometimes it can be almost like just really flat and boring. But right now, the contours and the features on the beach are just really, really nice. Like everything just looks fishy. So you have a lot of those opportunities where you have those cuts in the sandbar, and it's really easy to see right now, I think, because of how feature abundant it is. You can really see those cuts really well in those holes. So there's plenty of places to see, plenty of places to fish. David Thornton even posted a picture, I think,
saw that
on our Facebook page. And that was really neat to see how many of those holes, and that's true really along any beach that you go to right now. So really easy to pick a spot. There's plenty of places to fish, which is good because the pier is going to be closing down here soon. So there's going to be a lot of people on the beach, and there's plenty of holes to be found.
What are you using for bait? You just using Fishbites on the bottom, or fresh shrimp, or anything sticking out to you in particular?
Anytime I'm targeting whiting specifically, the absolute best bait is just fresh dead shrimp. I mean, I use Fishbite sometimes, and if that's all you've got, that is fine. That's okay. But it's one of those, instances where I usually don't even use Fishbites just because it's such a quick bite if you can get those fresh dead shrimp.
Sure.
Now, sometimes ghost shrimp will give you a little bit of an advantage if you want to put in the work, if you want to get some ghost shrimp. If you are not getting the bites like you think you should, that is what they're eating right now. There are just so many ghost shrimp this time of year. They're stacked. I mean, there's so much poop on the beach. That's always the sign. Like, you can see the poop from the ghost shrimp, the pellets that they make. There's just like a black line along the beach because there's just so many ghost shrimp, and that's what they're feeding on. That's what's drawing them in and close and in those holes. That's what they're going to be there for. So if you don't mind pumping some shrimp and using those, it is a lot more work, takes a lot more time, but it can increase your success. But if you don't have that fresh dead shrimp from the bait store, it's going to work fine typically.
Matthew, the first time I ever slurped up some ghost shrimp, I was pretty surprised at how much work it was. I kind of expected like every hole to produce a ghost shrimp, and I was like, well, I'll just be out here for like 5 minutes. And when you do it, how many do you try to get? Is it one of those things where just depends, or what would you say if somebody's getting started and they've got a slurp gun and they go out and get going? Do they need to get a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen? What's enough?
Yeah, I protect my ghost shrimp, so I use them as sparingly as possible. But because the great thing about ghost shrimp is such an effective bait. The scent on it, like if there's a fish around, they're typically going to find it. So it can really. I use ghost shrimp a lot as a tool to figure out what's going on quickly, and I may not even use the bait as a bait, if that makes sense, as more of just like a search bait, because they sometimes can be so hard to get. You may not have 2 dozen or 3 dozen or 4 dozen unless you just have the time to go out and pump. Because you're right. I mean, some days it may take me an hour to get 15, but some days, I can go out and I may can get 15 in 10 minutes. So just depending on that, just depending on how effective I can be at finding them is how many I'll get. But regardless of how many I can pump up, I try to get 2 to 3 dozen if I can, if I'm going on a trip, if I can, but that just may not be possible. But regardless of how many I get, I'm going to use that first, and I'm going to just put 1 rod out and or 2, possibly no more than that with ghost shrimp. And I'm going to move it around a little bit and see what fish are where. And that, like, even when the junk fish are around, that's okay. It's going to let me know real fast where those are. So just like I was telling you earlier in the report, those out deep, we were seeing all those croakers and small catfish on those dirty water days. I mean, as soon as I put a ghost shrimp out there, they're on it. So like, okay, I know I'm not
throwing there again.
Back there.
Yeah.
You're exactly, yeah. So I can move real quick with that ghost shrimp because I know it's just going to draw them in so fast. I'm going to get bites. If it can sit, like you really want your ghost shrimp to get out there and sit for at least like 10 minutes. If you can't put it out there and let it sit for 10 minutes without some little small trash fish coming to hit it, don't put it there. You want to let it sit because the pompano are not thick right now. So you're not, and even whiting sometimes. So like unless you're catching whiting or pompano immediately, it's a problem. So you want it to sit, especially for pompano. You want to give it at least 10 minutes of not getting tap, 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 tap. Those machine gun taps that you're going to see from smaller fish.
Yeah,
but really effective
stuff
for that. Yeah, to find fish.
Are you throwing any artificials off the beach this time of year, or mirror lures, or anything like your diamond jigs, or are you just not even worth it?
I've done some artificial fishing, but I've done it from the pier, and we haven't talked about that. But the white trout have been really good on the octagon at the pier, and I've used the Fishbites Fight Club lures, which is like if you're familiar with Gulp, it's similar to that. It's scented, but it is a little bit tougher, which is nice because those white trout, there's a lot of them. I mean, you can catch those white trout right now until you're blue in the face, but a lot of them are small, really, really small. But if you weed through them, you can find plenty of keepers. I mean, we're catching some decent ones mixed in there with them, but you can stay really busy and catch a ton of fish.
Which pattern of Fight Club and colors and are you using the shrimp imitation? What exactly are you using?
I was personally using the shrimp, but honestly, it probably doesn't matter as long as you've got one of the baits, just because they're all scented. It can be the paddle tail, it can be whatever. But what I've done, because usually those white trout are small, their mouths are so small, you're going to want to cut it up generally. So like cut it in half or cut a small piece of that lure, and you don't even have to really move it too much. I usually put it on like a Carolina rig or just a jig head and just drag it on the bottom, or just let it sit there, and they'll find that pretty quick. You don't have to give it a whole lot of action for them, but that scent's what's going to get them. So the scent on that lure, but you can drag it along on the jig head or Carolina rig and just real slow move it along, and you'll pick up those fish. So I wouldn't say the mold or the shape of it's real important, just as long as you use a small enough piece on that jig head or Carolina rig to get in their mouth.
Matthew, does the Fight Club series have a slow release and a fast release the way that the Fishbites do, or is it all one release?
No, it's all the same. People are more familiar probably with Gulp right now just because it's been around a little bit longer. But it's the same as that, like the scent that they use, like Gulp scent. Like it doesn't matter if you get the mullet or the shrimp or the shad or whatever mold you get. It doesn't, or even the sand flea. They got like a sand flea shit too. It doesn't matter what mold you get. It's all the same scent. Like whatever scent juice that is, like it's all the same. Same thing with your Fight Club. It's all the same scent, even regardless of the shape of the lure, which one you get, or color or any of that. It's all the same scent, and it doesn't release any faster or do anything different. It's just they're all the same.
Excellent stuff. So you mentioned
stuff,
the pier. I thought when we talked to David last, it was going to be closed by now. Have you heard any more news on when they're going to start the repairs and have it closed down?
I was out there yesterday, and the pier manager and a few of the guys that are regulars out there, we were talking about it, and it's been a little up in the air. They still they haven't got a clear answer on it, but it is looking like possibly towards the end of next week is when it looks like it's going to close down. So it's going to happen very soon. But not only the white trout, if you want to get out of the pier, you want to do it fast, but the whiting that they're catching on the pier, good gracious. When I walked by, because I was focused on white trout yesterday, but when I walked by, there was a lot of people there. So you're going to be tight, but the whiting that they're catching, they are huge at the pier right now. I mean, they are all 15, 16, 17 inches. I mean, they are just crushing some studs
Nice.
out there on for the whiting on the pier. I guess those big ones are just liking that structure. They're hanging around in those deep pockets that you can get to off the pier.
Mondo whiting, bro.
Mondo, bro.
Yeah, they're Mondo's full show.
All right, Matthew. Well, we got to get the onshore tip. This week's brought to us by KillerDock. Today, we are going to profile another common form of dock dysfunction, and that is dirty dock. Have you ever cleaned up a nice mess of fish and then watched your wife's face in disgust when she sees your dirty dock as a result? It's happened to all of us who are cleaning fish on old wooden fish cleaning tables that don't slope towards the water. Guys, you need dock enhancement. KillerDock fish cleaning stations are marine-grade aluminum coated with a ceramic finish that makes cleaning your dock, your dirty dock, that is, a cinch. The scales and slime drain directly into the water through the legs and or through the slots. You choose the style. Check out the best fish cleaning stations known to mankind at KillerDock.com. What do you think, Matthew? What you got for an onshore tip?
Talking about throwing the artificials for the white trout, something that I've started doing or using really this past year. I had not explored it until this past year, but it really came in handy with these trout. Is I was using these jig heads, and a lot of brands make them, and I don't think I've noticed a difference yet, but in brands. But the spring lock jig heads are like a lifesaver for throwing these artificials, especially with these white trout, because you're getting hit so much by the small ones every cast that if I was just using your traditional jig head, that bait would be sliding off, and it would be just, you'd be going through so many baits. I only had to use, I think, 2 Fight Club shrimp while I was on the pier, and I fished for about 4 hours. And I'm not kidding. Like, and the Fight Club lures are so tough in and of themselves. Like they're tougher than gold, from my experience. But that combined with that spring lock jig head, just, you can really, that bait's not moving anywhere. You use those Fight Club lures, it's going to be tough. It's going to stay on there. You can catch a ton of fish, you can get a ton of bites, and that bait's going to hold up. So it's a game changer for me using the spring lock jigs. I mean, a lot of folks may already use them, but if you haven't and you want to throw any kind of soft plastic, especially right now for these white trout off the pier, it's a must. You're going to be frustrated if you don't.
And that's great. I would have never thought of that, and that's a really cool tip and very relevant. Matthew, if folks want to get in touch with you, book a surf fishing trip, or check out your YouTube channel, see what kind of content you're creating. How can they get in touch with you, and where are you on YouTube?
Yeah. Best way to find me, you can go to my website, and I've got a link to my channel there as well. But it's staybummy.com. That's STAYBUMMY.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks as always. And we'll be talking to you again here soon. And stay safe out there. Looking forward to speaking with you again.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. This week's What Did You Learn is brought to us by the Biloxi Boat Show. This event will be held February 7th through 9th, 2020 at the Mississippi Coast Coliseum, featuring boat dealers from Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, and North Carolina. Get the best prices of the year with manufacturer and dealer incentives not available after March. Adult tickets are $10 and kids 15 and under are free, and there is also a $2 military discount. The first show of the season means the best selection. February 7th through 9th, the Mississippi Coast Coliseum. For more information, go to GulfCoastShows.com. This year's show is sponsored in part by Galleria, BMW, and Hancock Whitney Bank. Some great reports, man. 2020, can you believe it?
No, I cannot. I really can't, but it's here.
You're getting old.
Yeah, for sure.
Our 20-year high school reunion is not that far away.
Yeah, and some people are laughing at us. They're like, "Oh yeah, I remember when my 20-year school reunion happened." But nah, man, it's all good. Best part of life is happening right now. If you don't believe that, you got your priorities mixed up.
Yeah, that's another good report, man. I'm definitely enjoying it. Looking forward to 2020. We've got some cool things happening. Looking forward to it, man. It's gonna be a good one.
Yes, sir. Me too.
What'd you learn today, man?
I think the thing that stuck out to me for multiple reasons was what Chris was saying about setting drags. There's a couple things. There's a couple things there for me. Number one, most people don't check their drags.
I was just going to say it's a very overlooked part of fishing. It's probably top 3 of the most important parts of your situation, in my opinion. I
mean, I think most people that I've fished with don't even hand pull their drags and kind of and I see guys, and it's particularly relevant as we go into the spring, because what the average angler will do is he's going to put his rods up, in the fall or in the winter, and take them back out in the spring. And so there's a couple things there. One is, take all if you haven't done it yet, go into your garage or wherever you keep all your fishing reels and go in there and back all the drags off right now. Because you've got a drag washer in that reel. And if you've got your drag set to where you had them set the last time you went fishing, that washer is being compressed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you leave it that way all winter long, that washer will wear out. It will become permanently depressed. And so your drag will not function the same way. And you have to keep cranking it down and down and down and down. And eventually
you'll lose a big fish and you'll be depressed.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's one thing it reminded me of is to back. I mean, if you go and look at all my rod and reels, all the line and, is just limp because there's literally, all of them. Yeah. Yeah. I've got a cane pole and a brim buster, but, I mean, you back your drags off when you're not fishing a lot, even if it's just going to be a couple weeks. I always back my drags off.
Even we store our big rods, like our 50s and 80s, we always slack them all the way off. Free spool.
Yep. And, so that's one thing. And the other side of that was you're not going to have time to react when you've got the fish of a lifetime on. You're going to be excited. That fish is going to be putting more stress and more pressure on your equipment than any other fish you've ever caught. And that's when it's going to fail, if it's going to fail. It's not going to fail with the schoolie. It's going to fail with the one that you will never forget losing. So checking those drags before you go, and then also setting yourself up to not have to think in the middle of a fight. You can just, back it to the white, back it to the red.
Yep.
Whatever it is. I thought that was a super short but very awesome tip. And
also something very easy to do too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not super complicated.
Doesn't take any time. I pull the drags on my spinning rods, man. If I'm going cobia fishing, it takes just a couple of seconds to throw. You just take your fish scale out, tie a little loop knot in the end of it, get your buddy to hold the rod, or you hold the rod, and set it at a third of the break of the weakest point in the line. If you got a 50-pound test and you are using a Palomar knot and that knot breaks at 95% of the line's breaking strength, then you're maybe 45% or 45 pounds. Set it for 30% of that. So set it for 15 pounds of drag, and you're good to go.
Yep. Yeah, and just knowing that peace of mind there too, in my opinion, is priceless. Just knowing this fish isn't going to break off whenever I have the drag set right where it needs to be.
How many fish have you seen lost where there's like, my line
gosh.
broke, and then they had just never checked the.
You can't get it out of the reel and just locked up.
Yeah.
Yep. All the time for sure.
Yep. I mean, it's never happened to me.
Of course not me either.
But I've seen it.
Same.
What about you, man? What did you think? What was your takeaway?
Yeah, I really liked what Bama Beach Bum was saying about the ghost shrimp and kind of using that as his locator bait. He's saving his best bait to find out where the fish are, and also where the fish aren't, or what you not want to catch is eating the ghost shrimp. You can kind of adjust your situation to that. I like that a lot. Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of flying fish in blue water. You get lucky and have a flying fish fly in the boat, or maybe you got a little, we used to keep a little 4-foot cast net with us. When one would go floating by, we'd throw the cast net over him. But if you got a bunch of sharks around the boat, or if you're in the black fins or something like that, it's almost not even worth it to slick that flying fish back, because it's just going to get eaten by whatever. I like how he was protecting them.
Me too. Sacred bait. I like it.
Sacred ghost shrimp.
All right, man. Take us out of this thing.
All right, folks. That's going to wrap it up this week. We appreciate you guys listening. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you would like us to send you the podcast, you can head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we will email you the new show each week. That's going to do it for us. I'm Joe Baya with Butch Theory. We'll see you guys next week.
Keep whacking them.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Fishbites. The bait stays on the hook and the fish stay on the bait. Check out the full line of Fishbite lures at fishbites.com.
Also brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at CCAAlabama.org.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Daycool Heating and Air, your home performance specialists. Contact them at 251-260-3858 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com. License number AL07028.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo Depaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo Depaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
Also brought to you by Geico. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al.
And also Great Days Outdoors, the South's finest hunting and fishing magazine. Pick up your copy wherever magazines are sold or check them out at greatdaysoutdoors.com.